Moxxie and Millie are a disappointment, and despite being a major selling point of Helluva Boss, there is major room for improvement. Now, before we start off with what's so disappointing about the two, let's look at what the show got right with them. Everybody on the internet talks about how many wholesome moments the two share. It's what sells the relationship to most of the viewers and fans. There are whole YouTube compilations dedicated to these parts of the show. Looking deeper than that, it is actually a neat bit of contrast, having a wholesome relationship in, well, hell. For the first few episodes, this was basically as far as it went. A cute newlywed couple, who were able to go goblin mode on anything in their path. I definitely do enjoy this aspect, and it's why the earlier versions of these two are my favorite. I say this because the minute they try to do more with them, it almost always has an underlying problem that mitigates the effect of whatever they want to do. Episode 5, Harvest Moon Festival. The IMP gang are invited to the Harvest Moon Festival, and it's here where we meet Millie's parents.
Y'all remember my husband, Moxxie?
Her parents are your typical farmhouse parents. They're strong, know a lot about animals, and are hardworking. They are also complete opposites to Moxxie. From the jump, you can see their disapproval of him, despite him trying to bridge that gap by going out of his way to impress them. This feels like the great start to an episode dealing with Moxxie getting rid of his insecurities, while strengthening his relationship with Millie and his in-laws. However, none of that here matters, directly. Throughout the whole episode, we get to see Moxxie try and fail at being more masculine, so that he can impress Millie's parents, which is great, but we don't really get much input from Millie. It's strange, seeing as how this is her home and where her parents live. You'd think we'd get more from her, like maybe an argument with her parents, where she defends Mox, or Millie trying to convince Mox to pull out of the pain games before he seriously hurts himself, but no, she's kinda just there for the most part, which I certainly hope isn't a recurring theme for her character. Oh, for fuck's sake. In fact, until Stryker almost kills the both of them near the end of the episode, she doesn't have a direct impact on anything in the story. But I'll give them credit for showing the fact that they always support each other and will have each other's backs. Quite literally, this man would have died if Millie wasn't such a badass, which is one of her only main character traits. I really am showing my cards here, aren't I? And at the end of the episode, her parents get on her case about almost dying, instead of actually being happy that she's alive, and Mox finally stands up for her.
You two are getting on her case about being hurt by a psychopath you hired?
Wow, he nodded! He's never acknowledged your input before.
Again, this could have been a great moment, but for me, it's not treated as seriously as I would have liked it to be. It's treated more as the setup to a joke that was half-hearted to begin with. But fear not, because the next episode, Ozzie's, does a much better job at handling the two.
Oh, it's fine. I can come with the two of you. Help you celebrate your boring as fuck monogamy.
No. The reservation is for us.
Uh-huh.
Just us.
Mox and Millie are celebrating their 1-year anniversary by going to Ozzie's, a super luxurious and expensive nightclub. However, Blitz follows them because he's obsessed with their relationship, which causes a lot of shit to go down, but that doesn't matter. But what does matter is this song.
I love you more than the brimstone.
Yeah, it is extremely cheesy and sentimental, but I think this works in the song's favor because these two represent the opposite of your traditional relationship in hell. They love each other, and their relationship is healthy and supportive. It's just the type of relationship they have, and they perfectly encapsulated it in song form. This contrast is highlighted by the song sung by Osmodius, the owner, who sings a song all about lust. With its funky and almost seductive instrumental, not only is it one of the most memorable moments in the show, but it reinforces one of the most interesting themes the show has to offer. I say this to a lot of my friends who like Helluva Boss. The ideas and themes behind these two are more interesting to me than the couple themselves, which, if you didn't know, isn't a good thing. If I am more interested in what could have been and what themes your show has, rather than what's actually being given to me, that just means it's not fulfilling the potential it has. The next episode proves my point as well, as Exes and O's is beyond disappointing for me.
He just kept going on about how he has money now, and a bright future, and a bigger cock. Wait, what?
The episode starts off with Millie walking into the office, angry as hell, pun fucking intended, because she bumped into an ex. Things only ramp up when, after going to a client's house, which ends up being Moxie's dad, we meet Chaz, a suave, sex-obsessed prick who would fit perfectly onto any Love Island set. But what we also learn is that he's Moxie's ex as well. This seems like the great start to an episode dealing with Moxxie and Millie, dealing with their past and using it to strengthen the relationship. However, none of that here matters. Wait, didn't I read this already? Once again, the show fumbles the bag with these two by not going in depth as to how this affects their relationship. This episode focuses on Moxxie's abusive relationship with his father and his childhood. That's a plot that easily takes up the space of a whole episode, and with more focus on it, has the potential to be great. And it was. But don't simultaneously bring up the fact that these two have a shared ex and not show us how they feel about each other after that. They literally ignore this fact. They talk to each other multiple times in the episode but never bring it up. Give us some conflict. Maybe have one of them upset that they didn't tell the other. I mean, I don't know. It far beats having it be a side note to an episode that didn't need it. You should always build on backstory. Never leave it to have no effect on it. You could say that Millie saving Moxxie at the end was a good moment, and I'd agree with you if there was more built up to it between the two. This could have been the A-plot to an episode much more focused on the two of them rather than just Moxxie, which brings me nicely to my next point.
By far the least focused on of the imps in an individual context and has little to no screen presence of her own.
It's the overall development, or the lack thereof, that causes a large amount of discourse within the Helluva Boss community.
Millie is the +1 to Moxxie's character.
Yeah, everyone and their grandma has said this before. Millie is the most underdeveloped character in Helluva Boss. It's not a new take. Jason Blade actually made a really good video on that, so watch it if you haven't. To summarize this point, Millie has very little contribution to make in these episodes outside of being an immense fighter and being Moxxie's wife. I do agree with this sentiment. Millie is a very undercooked character, and in context to their relationship, it gives it a one-sided feel. Like Moxxie is carrying the relationship on his shoulders, which is obviously not how it's supposed to be. There's so much backstory given to her that's not ended up in any kind of development for her, and she hasn't had any major challenges to overcome by herself. Her character ultimately feels flat. So what can be done to improve this? How can this show, moving forward, actually develop this relationship into something meaningful, instead of just a cheap selling point to a shipping audience? 1. Give Millie her own episode. She could bring so much more to the table if she just had a few more defining character traits. Whether you agree with me or not, she's the only character thus far that doesn't have her leading role in her own episode. I heard it has something to do with Vibsy wanting to develop the female leads in Hazbin Hotel and the male leads in Helluva Boss, but I find that quite dumb, frankly. You can still develop all your characters a decent amount in both shows, no matter the gender. In fact, seeing as how so many people on the internet love her despite this issue, imagine if she had her own episode. Now that would go crazy. 2. Give us some conflict. I'm not saying we should have some grandiose storyline where the two consider getting divorced or something. That would be a dumb move. But one of the things that strengthens a relationship, romantic or not, is the fact that arguments can happen, but you're still okay with the other person. Getting to see the two fight over something but come together at the end and stronger than before would give me more reason to root for them to continue. I bet you my entire channel that would go crazy as well. Nah, but for real though, don't take me up on that. In conclusion, I think that in their current state, this relationship has been a bit of a disappointment. It's underdeveloped, being carried by one person most of the time, but I'll admit it does have good qualities to it. I love how they perfectly contrast the expectations of Hell by being committed to one another, and the YouTube compilations don't lie. These two are extremely cute together. One thing's for certain though, it's less chaotic than whatever the fuck is going on here.